There's been a four-letter word that's been bouncing around my head lately. Part of it is because I've heard it more often, and part of it was because I was in a discussion with a friend, and that word came up a number of times. A four-letter word. We're not having a contest about it, but maybe we could. It starts with an M. The word more. M-O-R-E. We know what it's about. We live in a culture that always talks about more. And one of the things that came up to me, and as I was listening and as I've heard things too, there's this understanding that, or if you want to say a cultural phenomenon, which has been there before, it's kind of in that self-help genre, but the latest phrase is becoming your best self. That we can't be satisfied with where we're at. There needs to be something better, or if you want to say something more about ourselves. I looked online, and one of the sites, I guess you would say, or one of the books or one of the podcasts that were being promoted said, would you like to be the smartest, the best looking, the fittest, the funniest, the best dressed, the most compassionate, loving person you've ever been? And then it goes on to list all these number of things that can help you become more of those things. Part of a conversation with a friend of mine that got me thinking about this too is we were talking about his, not only his, but I guess in general, our spiritual lives. And he was talking that he wanted to have, if you want to say, more faith. He wanted to be more religious. He wanted to have more prayer. And ultimately, one of the things he said is, I want to be more like Christ. And all of that got me thinking about, what does that really mean? What are we really saying? Is it a cultural phenomenon in our time, or is it really something that is based in the scriptures and the sacred writings? So if I want to become, if looking at becoming my best self, if I want to become funnier, I guess maybe I should take some classes to learn about comedy. If I wanted to become smarter, first I've got to decide what it is I want to gain more knowledge about, but when do I gain enough knowledge? That concept of more never seems to have an end point. So going back to my friend and part of that discussion about spiritual life, well, I want to be more like Christ. What does that mean? Do I want to be more compassionate? Okay, am I compassionate now? And when do I, if you want to say, when do I gain enough compassion? Because I think that concept of more, at least as I was churning it around in my head, always speaks of being dissatisfied. Or maybe it's kind of this cryptic way of saying, I'm not quite good enough. I'm not satisfied. And that seems to be part of a human dynamic, and we use that over and over again to tell people they're not good enough. Don't be satisfied with where you're at. You need to become your best self. Well, then who am I now? Was my best self 20 years ago? Was my best self 10 years ago? Is my best self 10 years into the future? How do I do, if you want to say, the best I can do today with what I've got? Can I be compassionate and embrace that? Can I be loving and embrace that? Can I be tolerant and embrace that? Are some days better than others? Sure. I have more tolerance sometimes than other times. But if I'm constantly dissatisfied, where do I find peace? Not only where, but when. I was listening to a podcast and the person had 3 kind of points talking about ourselves, but the points were this: know it, own it, show it. If you want to put it in a spiritual context, know that you're acceptable, forgiven, and loved. Know that, because that all of a sudden helps formulate a sense of peace and satisfaction with today. So when you know it, then own it. Claim it as I am a compassionate person. Are there times I'm not? Sure. But if we're constantly trying to say we got to measure those kind of characteristics and get it to a certain point, and then all of a sudden I'm compassionate or loving or kind or gentle, we're in constant turmoil. And part of that then is to show it. When do we show it? Hopefully every day. Show it to ourselves first and foremost. Show it then to others. And live it. I believe at times I'm the best I'm going to be today. And I can be satisfied with that, because otherwise, again, life is in this constant turmoil. I understand it if marketers are trying to sell me products, that my teeth aren't white enough, so I have to go buy certain toothpaste and whitening strips and all these other sorts of things. Or marketers who are trying to sell me fitness programs or certain foods. You're not quite healthy enough yet. We can help you do that. But when do you ever reach that point? And the church even does it. One of the denominations I'm affiliated with is talking about its upcoming conference and kind of the theme or the program for the conference. And it says this in their website and mailings about the conference: we need to step out of our comfort zone and follow the path to live like Jesus in ways beyond our imagination. To live like Jesus. What does that mean? Do we want to live like Jesus when he was, say, 13 and be a woodworker carpenter? Do we want to live like Jesus and be out on a boat with fishermen and kind of enjoying that? Do we want to live like Jesus and have people humiliate us and speak poorly of us? What does that mean? And even at that, to say, in ways beyond our imagination. If I can't imagine it, how can I do it? If I'm not comfortable, it seems difficult to be doing things, in my estimation. Why do we have to be more? Maybe if we're satisfied with now, there could be less turmoil in our lives and our world. If we would practice the compassion as we understand it now, maybe more compassion would be shown instead of this, well, I've got to have more. Because when is more ever filled? So that's the 4-letter word that's been creeping into my life and into my thoughts. And I certainly hope that the experience or your listening to this helps you churn around some of those thoughts in your own mind. But my hope would be that you're satisfied with where you're at today. That doesn't mean there aren't other things to do But life does not have to be a series of, I've got to be better, I'm not the best. It doesn't have to be this series of chaos in our lives because we can't be satisfied, because in a spiritual perspective, in a Christian perspective, we're accepted and loved and graced where we are. And I think that gives us a whole different outlook of how we choose to live our lives. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Any comments, feedback, I certainly appreciate that. And I look forward to sharing some more things with you in the weeks to come.